So in this current webinar session, we're going to start with a bit of a point of view that we've got that enterprises should be in a much better position to leverage Gen AI and all of the new predictive AI technology and tools than any incumbent to the market has ever been. So I'm going to take you through a few slides that hopefully you'll come out of this thinking, yeah, this is what the moat that our organization can build. This is how we'll protect ourselves from incumbents and win the competitive sort of race and the competitive advantage through leveraging Gen AI in the right way. You can contact me at the end to see whether you feel that is true or not. First, a little bit about GW, Griffiths Way. So we're a technology consultancy that builds custom AI products that deliver critical business impact. So all the elements of this statement are equally important. We treat any adoption of AI the same that we do with building any custom products that we build. We treat them as a product, we evolve them, we keep testing them, we keep having a features backlog with that. And really importantly is that they all should add business impact. It should be driving the advancement of measurable improvement in the way the business operates. There's a lot of AI usage at the moment that is for convenience, for efficiency, which is great. That starts to deliver impact, but it's only when you actually use that time you've saved to develop better elements for the business and to really impact the business KPIs better. So that'll be a common theme throughout this webinar. Work with a lot of companies over the decades, a lot in financial services, but also other kind of sectors, anywhere really where custom products can make a difference, can make a competitive difference in your market. That's where we sit. Bit about GW in that we've been in business for over 30 years, always delivering custom technology solutions, always working closely with the business. We're 100% employee-owned trust. So this means that we have, certainly recently with the advent of AI, we've been really looking at how that sustains our future, not just how it drives short-term profits. So my role as Chief AI Officer is to make sure that we're in the right position in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, to really benefit us and our customers from AI. Okay, so on to the topic. Now, I came up with this webinar topic when I actually saw this advert from Base 44. Now, this advert was aired at halftime in the Super Bowl. So that's when the big adverts come in. So it shows how much investment there is in these AI tools and these automation tools to the general public, not just to business. But, this is probably, they probably paid the most for any slot in the Super Bowl to promote this. And it really got me thinking. So I'm actually going to play that advert for a minute. Please shout up, Liz, if the audio is not clear.
Whoa.
What's that?
I just built a budgeting app in Base 44.
Guys, Nina just built an app.
Impossible.
Nina can't code.
Interesting. Can it generate reports?
It can now.
Nice.
So you're saying we can all build apps now?
Yeah.
I'm on lunch. I gotta make a call.
I'll be
in my
right
office. Just built an inventory tracker. Protein calculator.
Book share an app.
A workflow manager that
Tracks who still owes for the group lunch.
Trash duty schedule.
Since no one seems to care.
Just built a
I just created a goal tracking system.
We built the same thing, didn't we?
Yep.
Can this thing manage contacts?
Is the SOC 2 compliant?
I want to animate this graph.
Create a party planner.
Profesor de Español.
An inter-office dating app. For dogs. For office dogs. You know what I mean?
Right, who doesn't need an office dog app, right? And while that was on, my dog opened up the door and came in actually. So she obviously feels she wants a bit of attention from an app. Now I don't know what people think. Is that a great thing? People building all these apps? Does it concern you if you're a CIO? You know, are you a bit kind of concerned with the proliferation of these apps? I actually had 3 people this week pitch ideas to me for AI-driven apps. That's not at work either. So one was on the side of a rugby field watching my son play rugby. Someone came up with a prototype they'd built of a menu style, you know, take a photo of your food like Gusto and it will do all of the orders to Sainsbury's and other supermarkets. They hadn't just come up with an idea, they'd prototyped it. This is someone who's not a software engineer, right? Their challenges, though, were integration. They've got their son loading the data in, right? But the idea is that this innovation is hugely democratized now. You know, it is never easier for people to build apps, right? So, and it's not just ideas, it's working solutions. Now, this feels a bit like when a couple of decades ago, Excel became one of the biggest tools for managing enterprise data. You know, everyone had a spreadsheet for this and a spreadsheet for that. You know, it was, you know, spreading across the whole organization, you know, if you pardon the pun there. But everyone had their data, their own copy of their data that they were analyzing, they were doing processes with. Then when BI tools came in and came a bit more mainstream, there was a quest to bring all that data back together, you know, and structure it in the right way and get consistency and look at privacy and security and all of the great cross-cutting concerns that an architecture team puts in place. But there was a challenge because all of this data, it was there in shadow IT. And I think there's a real danger that this happens with organizations. People within the teams have got gaps, they've got problems, they've got items that are stopping them adding the business value to their customers that they want to do. They have great demand for IT to move fast. So now they're filling the gaps with their own tools. You know, with tools like Base 44, which is, you know, an excellent tool, semi-engineering based tools like V0 and Claude Code, and, you know, also very much low code automation tools like N8N or Make or Zapier, etc. So there's this proliferation of tools going on. And from an enterprise point of view, that will help with efficiencies, but will it really drive the competitive advantage that you need? So that's what led me to thinking of this phrase, that actually, you know, the advantage can be tilted back to the organization. If individuals can build these fast, then using the right tools in the right approach, enterprise IT teams, engineering teams, product teams can actually build this fast as well. But they've got the advantage of the data, the knowledge, the integrations. They know how we engage. Product teams know how best to engage with customers, how to make great experiences. IT teams know how to get at the proprietary data in a secure way. You know, with all that experience of the enterprise baked in. When the digital wave came, there were a lot of startups that could move fast with technology, so they could get technology solutions out there and take market share because it was different, it was innovative, you know, it was solving a problem that the large enterprises couldn't. But it was a skilled task to build a kind of a digital app in the 2000s, or a great customer experience through a browser-based solution through that period, right? Startups are thinking they can do the same with AI. They can roll out applications in weeks, right? But the difference here is they won't have what I'm calling the moats. They won't have the data, the talent, the integration, the user experiences, the knowledge within the business. which now is much easier to build into these experiences, into the apps, into the conversational interactions that you will have. So my proposition, really, my hypothesis is enterprises should be in a much better position now than they were when the digital disruption came, a couple of decades ago. So I do think, would Monzo have had such a meteoric rise if the high street banks could build that tech as quickly as Monzo, or nearly as quickly? Those high street banks use their data, their experiences, their customer base, the processes, their fulfillment models, and they could have rolled out applications nearly as quick as Monzo. Would these incumbents have had the traction that they had? Another example, going back a bit, to when I was much younger, so before, some of the time of people who are watching. What about Blockbuster and Netflix? So Netflix offered themselves to Blockbuster when they were just growing. I think it was something like $50 million, if I remember correctly, from the good book about that. Blockbuster had the data. They knew everything about people's watching habits. They had all of the customer insight. They had the brand. You would go to Blockbuster on a Friday night if you wanted to watch the latest movie. It could be said they didn't really care about customer experience. It was about efficiency, getting in and out. They made a lot of money through late fees rather than making the video experience work in the consumer's world, right? But if today a Netflix came afresh with all the data that Blockbuster had there, they could have made that work very fast. So if Netflix had Blockbuster's data and used their technology, the rise would have been even quicker maybe than it was with the adoption of Netflix. So for enterprises, they've got the crown jewels, they've got the jewels within their organizations. Now it's about how they actually come up with a strategy to use that. And it's not maybe one path or the other. Get that strategy, get that incremental adoption, and it should be setting you apart from your competitors. So that's what I'm defining as sort of the enterprise modes. So ask this question, how many are really doing that? Is AI really strengthening the competitive advantage in your organization? Or is it quietly and silently weakening it? What would your CIO say? Productivity's up, activity, we're busy, but are you getting the advantage from AI? There's a lot of distraction going on. AI is a disruptive technology. It will change customer experiences, the processes behind it, the data and the intelligence and the services that you are building, right? But there's a lot of busyness going on with AI. There's a lot of, here's a problem that I can automate. I can make this efficient. It's in those low levels of maturity that we are operating with a lot of organizations at the moment. Is the quest for efficiency outweighing the quest for business value? Efficiency first is fine, but if then you can start taking a look back and saying, where is the real value of AI? What will my organization look like in, normally you'd say 5 to 10 years time. With AI, you probably want to say in 2 to 3 years time, right? Where will it look like? Will it be busy like this slide is? Or will it be structured? Will it have a clear goal of how AI is going to allow you to get your competitive advantage? There's a danger that this is just commoditisation in disguise. There's a lot of talk about AI democratizing the building of tools. But if all of, and this comes up a lot in the AI workshops that we do, what if all of our competitors have the same tools? What differentiates us now? They've got the same models, the same low-code generation. What is the moat? But for most organizations, your product isn't the app or the portal or the API. It's the business outcome. It's the service or the value through products you're adding to your customers and your organization, right? So that's your moat. What does that mean? What does the business outcome, the service, the great customer experience mean? Well, it's in your knowledge of that customer. It's the history with that customer. It's the data that represents that. It's having a great experience with that customer that you should be able to do better than anyone else if you take the right approach with that. So this won't be commodity. The commodity will be the general intelligence that we're applying. The differentiation will be your knowledge and intelligence and your processes and the experience for your customers that you're applying. So I've proposed that it will not necessarily be the speed of startups with AI that will prevail. They'll be able to get to prototypes quickly, but you've seen, my rugby dad colleague can move as fast as kind of a startup with a lot of backing behind them, right? So startups need that speed to survive. They've got to get in there first. Enterprises need the coherence. They need a joined up view of how they're offering value to their customers, right? So if enterprises can move at nearly the speed or start to move towards the speed of startups, but with their knowledge, insight, experience, processes, integration, partner networks, they will hold the advantage over those startups. We don't want to be in a situation where we are enterprise level sitting back and going, yeah, we just built the same thing, Yeah, we might have built a dog tracking app that has brought the team together and had a bit of fun. Or we might have built an automation that takes the finance data and alerts us of anomalies. Or we might have built an app that actually helps you generate slides for a webinar, for instance, right? That makes it easy and efficient of that. But the value in my slides here is not the pictures, it's the words, it's the story, that we're telling, right? So really where the advantage is just, we don't want to get to the stage where, well, everyone's more efficient, but the company as a whole is weaker. I get a lot of talk about, well, if AI is going to make us 50% efficient, do we just cut the costs by 50%? That's not the way to compete. That's not the race to the bottom. It's not where most of our customers want to get the advantage. It's about then saying, well, with that 50%, where can we add value to our customers? Where can we drive better user experiences through the new conversational style AIs? Where can we make better decisions from this? So you might automate for 20% of the value, but it's really the other 20% of the automation or whatever, where the 80% of the value is gained. That's what we want to be working with, right? So this idea. There was a great quote that I put on LinkedIn last night from the godfather of modern business, Peter Drucker, who actually he initiated really the MBA program, the business administration program, and he's got a whole host of quotes. He was the one who said the best way to predict the future is to create it. He also, another one I love was the most important part of communication is hearing what isn't being said. So many of his quotes resonate in the age of AI. Understanding what was not said in a piece of text and building knowledge on that is a key engineering principle, really, when we're building AI models, right? But he also said there's nothing so useless as doing efficiently what should not be done at all, right? So I get a feeling of that with a lot of organizations busy automating things that maybe we shouldn't be doing in the first place. Let's really look at that North Star of where the value is and see how we can automate towards that. Okay. So I do worry that certain businesses, might be the people in the lobby. Liz.
It's fine. They're in.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it does make me slightly concerned that we're at a bit of a pivot point within most of our industries at the moment. Not just technical industries like IT development, but financial services. I was at a very large company who worked with the airports and the whole like transportation industry. Everything is changing. AI is impacting pretty much every industry. Was talking to someone in law tech recently, totally changing what the services and the products would look like. At the board level, you've got to have a strategy of what your organization will look like in that new world. Don't just automate what you're doing now. So busy is not equivalent to success, right? See a lot of pilots, a lot of owners, everyone trying to own AI from their perspective. No North Star, where are we moving? And a lot of things are isolated. A lot of things are not integrated together. That's not what we want to be doing. There's a danger that we will miss this moment. First time in decades, as I've said, that we can out innovate startups. AI rewards proprietary data, really clear and deep workflows, credibility, customer trust is needed. Pick companies who have a view on great customer experience. That's what AI will reward. So your organization should really be able to leverage and stand out with this, using the technology in the right way. So this is a bit dramatic, but path one is the tool sprawl, the local optimization, intelligence everywhere, like those Excel spreadsheets. Or the other path really is how can you get strategic value? How can you compound that intelligence, build on this, on the shoulders of giants, really making AI work in your world for your customers. And that's what I'm really proposing. Have a bit of an attitude and a bit of a think about, right? How can we build this moat? What will be the critical workflows that will benefit the most from AI being embedded in them? How do I get at that proprietary data and build within this integration? How do I make things modular and reused? If someone's built a great user experience within a conversational UI, within a portal or an app, how do we make sure we standardize that as an archetype that can be reused through other areas of the organization, and all we're adding is the outcomes we want and the proprietary knowledge for that? How do we have a system that is constantly feeding back through feedback loops of how effective the AI is and how the experience is getting improved or getting friction within it, right? So this is your mode. This is what you should be defining. This is what you should be thinking about strategically, and then building POCs and pilots based on those principles. This doesn't have to slow you down. This is what ultimately will accelerate you to that value. And another view from our point of view is these moats are built on products. What I mean by a product versus a tool is a product lives on, it evolves and improves over time, it has measurable impact, it has ownership, it has features that are added to it. It needs to stand up against testing, against the business, adoption and the business benefit from it. A tool is what we've got today with the likes of Copilot, ChatGPT. We're just using it for the means that we've got, maybe developing on it with agents within that or GPTs within that, but primarily it's a tool to meet a specific need. Our view is we should look at AI adoption as AI products, right? Not just tools. And actually, I would propose that technology isn't the main constraint, right? So we were just talking this week with one of my executive colleagues about how fast we are moving now with developing software, right? You get a feature backlog or you get a quarterly plan, and you can be ambitious with it, with all of the tooling, GitHub Copilot, Claude Code, all of the assistance that we've got in place for design, architecture, engineering. You can move fast with this, right? So the winning organizations, although they need to get the technology right and they need to have a standard for that and they need to roll it out, the winning organizations will understand what outcomes will make the biggest difference. They'll use blueprints. They will repeat what's working. They will have the feedback loops to improve those blueprints. They will have a North Star. What does the business look like in 2 to 3 years' time? They'll stop POCs and pilots if it's not working and really invest in those wins. One thing we were talking about with a customer, with a client and partner last week was about investment plans. You know, this is going to fundamentally change your organizations. Yet a lot are just doing individual business cases for individual opportunities rather than investing in AI, building the platform, building the whole kind of strategy of how you will get adoption, right? So I'm not talking about a lot of upfront costs, but just treating it as a, you know, this is going to disrupt. You are going to invest. You'd invest in building a new state-of-the-art building for your customer-facing, you know, kind of offices. You know, investment in AI, you know, needs to be considered similarly. Okay, so ultimately, those that will win, that will have the moats, are the ones that will restore the faith in business faith in IT. It's a phrase that we use commonly. You know, we felt that this was lost over the last few decades, that IT projects always took too long, were too slow, didn't work with the business well. Although, you know, a lot of projects that for people in this webinar, you know, buck that trend and are successful. But, you know, essentially, the ones who win with AI will restore that business faith in IT. They'll define the North Star and react towards that as intelligence evolves. They'll have product thinking. The customer experience will just fit. It will work in their world, right? The AI that you've got will work in your business's world, right? And I think that IT will be seen strategic again. It will grow the businesses. It will allow you to compete. It will come up with new possibilities rather than just automating the problems and the friction that the business sees currently. So that's about the enterprise moat and about some of the justification. Hopefully that's inspired you to think, yeah, there's a few things I should really think about what the future should look like, and drag it back down to what value will be added, and ensure I don't compromise on AI shouldn't be friction. You know, it should be working in your customers' ways of working, really. So the next session in 2 weeks' time, I'm actually going to draw that back down into more of the system. How would you approach that now? You know, so why are people not getting that enterprise value from AI? Why are they stuck in endless pilots? Why are they coming up with solutions that aren't integrated? So I'm going to take that sort of promise of building that moat and having that really rosy future and take through a system of how to do that. I'll introduce these 6 success factors for enterprise adoption of AI. And really, these are about, from my point of view, they're about building the right habits, the right transformational habits to adopt AI in a successful and seamless and frictionless way, right? So you'll see, this isn't just about technology. It starts with people, defining the strategy, having a product viewpoint, you know, ensuring you've got the right assets that are accessible to the AI solutions in a safe way. Delivery is really important. You know, you're going to need feedback loops. You're going to need to test in the market. You know, you can't suddenly have 6 months delivery cycles for a new feature. You know, it's got to move fast at the speed of that startup. And of course, it needs to be secure. It needs to be scalable. So these are some of the features. I've actually got a sort of a questionnaire, a score app assessment on what habits are suitable for you to look at next. So I'll introduce that in 2 weeks as well, and you can take that after the events. I'll also be introducing how we approach custom AI products using what we've termed the intelligence blueprints. starting at the human experience, how will people interact with these AI products, right? What does the future of a UI look like? You certainly won't be going into a portal app and filling in a 20 item form and then clicking next through the process. Whether there's a nice UX tray showing you where you are, you're going to be uploading all your context. You're going to expect it to extract out the context from that. You're going to expect it to make decisions on what it can and talk to you back on what is missing. It should be a partner to you, not just a sort of very static form. We'll be talking about what the intelligence behind that looks like, building agents, how you select and train models, how you design the AI services. And probably, the important layer that in my heart is really the systems AI readiness. How do you get your data ready to use these tools, these agents, without the right context and the right data, and without automating that to make sure that changes as your data changes, that they're only solving part of the problem. So systems AI readiness is a huge element that IT departments should be planning for now, right? So the promise then is, with these products, you'll get measurable business value. Rather than slowing down progress, it will help make sure that AI works in your customer's world and your business users' world. And my promise really is that all of those things put together will restore the business faith in IT. IT will be a partner rather than a supplier to the business, because AI is the biggest shift that will change how you do business in the future. So that's the date of the next webinar. If you've liked this, or if you want to drill down a bit detail, please register for that now.